פתחתי, אחי.
0.5.
כן.
תקשיב.
זה אתה, בוגול קראון? מה שם שלך? לא רואה אותך. אתה כבר בזום?
נקנה חלק מהר על ידי מבוסו, חלק על ידי
כן, ג'סי.
והחלק השלישי נקנה על ידי ביזנסמן.
שלחתי לך כבר אתמול.
מישל בונפו.
תסתכל לך, שלחתי לך.
תמיד נכון. עכשיו, איך מישל בונפו נתן לבומיה לעשות? בהמלצת רוסו.
אני חייב ש...
כל ההמלצת וכל ההמלצת המשפטית. קריסטוף מקבל 66%, ובונפו שני ליבים.
משהו מעורב בזה, בשמבול וילאז'.
לא בדיוק.
טיפה קרא, אבל קרא דסוי הגבוה. כן, בדיוק קרא וילאז'. קרא וילאז'. פרמייר פה זה פואה.
הענקית.
פואה
אתם צריכים להגיד לי גם שלא שפתאום נגיד לשם אחר.
בסדר, כן.
אני אגיד לך? קלור, איזה שזו. באמת הם עשו פה.
שאני אתן לך את היכולת להיות הוסט.
אני מחפש כל החלקות. איפה הוא מביא את המילה שלו. לברות.
אז אני אעשה אותך הוסט עכשיו.
גם זה במילה שלו.
זה לא פורם את זה.
פלאנק, קלוד אלורם.
סבבה.
מה יודעים מה היה הרבה?
עכשיו. סיסטם. 10-15% עץ חדש. כל הפרפקשן שאנחנו מכירים, של ארוכות, ציסות איטיות.
מה אתה עושה?
לא מגיע בורות שלו. אז אתה לא ממש מאיפה לא שמגיע. לאיזה שזו? לקלור. לקרא גבוה. לפוי.
טוב, פיצור, משהו משנה פה, אתם אותי מכל ה...
פוי, פלאנט ולזה שזו.
פוי, קרא, אני רואה שזה קרא, לא גבוה, קרא וילאז' שמיר, כולם וילאז'.
כי זה החלק הגבוה של קרא.
זה קרא. זה, הבנתי.
הוא יוצא פה קרא.
אוקיי, זה הפרמייר פה וזה הוילאז'. אוקיי.
אהלן, שלום לכולם. אהלן, שלום לכולם. אנחנו ממש מיד מתחילים, מחכים שכולם יגיעו, כמו שאמרנו, התכנסות השעה 9:15. אם כולכם נתכנסנו לפני, אז אנחנו גם נתחיל כמה דקות לפני. אהלן, ערב טוב חברים, ממש מחכים לאחרונים, ואנחנו מיד מתחילים, כמו שאמרנו, בשעה 9:15 אנחנו נתחיל, כאשר האחרונים יגיעו. אהלן, ערב טוב חברים, אנחנו עשינו בדיקת שמות לראות שרואים את כולם, אז רק אם אביבית נמצאת פה איתנו, כי אולי בשם אחר, אביבית, תשמיעי קול בצ'אט, כמו שראיתם כולכם על אנמיוט, אנחנו גם נאפשר יותר מאוחר למען הסדר הטוב שכולם יהיו במיוט ואנחנו בהמשך ניתן זה, ואנחנו כל הזמן בצ'אט, אז אתם יותר מוזמנים מלדבר איתנו. אביבית, את נמצאת פה באיזשהו שם אחר?
נשלח לה הודעה.
אנחנו מיד נשלח הודעה, ואז אנחנו נתחיל. האם כולם שומעים אותנו? תיתנו איזה אות חיים.
יאללה. שלום, היי לכולם. כיף שאתם איתנו בטעימה כזאת, שמחים שאהבתם את הבקבוקונים, השקענו פה להכי הרבה שיכולנו, כמו שרואים. אנחנו לא באנו לזייף שום בקבוקים, אל תיקחו את הרעיון הזה לשום דבר אחר. זה לנוחות, ליופי, לכבוד שיש לנו עבור העינות האלה. אנחנו ניתן היום 6 באמת, מאחד היצרנים הכי גדולים שיש בשבלי, אחד היצרנים הכי גדולים, 2 מהיצרנים הכי גדולים שיש בפיימונטה, ו2 מהיצרנים הכי גדולים שיש בבורגון. זה בהחלט אולי אחת הטעימות הכי מרגשות שהיו לי בחיים. מעבר לזה, אני חושב שזה פעם ראשונה בהיסטוריה שהעינות האלה מגיעים לאנשים הביתה, לסלון הביתי שלהם, ויכולים לטעום ככה. יש לנו בשורות של 3 עניינים שצריכים לעלות איתנו היום. פטריק פיוז, שאנחנו מחכים לו ממש להגיע איתנו ולעלות איתנו ללייב. לאחר מכן יעלה איתנו גם לוקה רואניה, ואחרי לוקה,
תשמעו קצת,
הוא הסתיר משהו אחד, אולי לא המשהו הגדול, אבל כן, השאיר פה איזשהו יינן בחוץ הפעם, שאנחנו נראה אותו גם בהמשך.
אני באמת לא יודע אם אני מתרגש מהיינות או מהאנשים שנמצאים איתנו, כי יש לנו פה הרכב חבל על הזמן.
טופ של חובבי היין הישראלי.
ממש טופ של חובבי היין, ויש גם כאלה שכבר איתנו כמה טעימות ברצף, וזה אותי אישית ממש מרגש, כי זה אומר שאנחנו אולי עושים פה משהו טוב, והיום זה טוב מאוד.
כן. המגמת עלייה הזאת בטעימות, איך זה כל פעם משתפר ומשתנה, זה מה שגורם לדבר הזה בעצם לדעתי לעבוד, זה הביקורת של האנשים שצופים בנו.
ממש, ממש, ממש.
והעיינות, כמובן, העיינות גם.
אז אנחנו מחכים לעיין הראשון שיעלה, אבל ליפשיץ, אתה רוצה לדבר קצת בגדול על הטעימה?
אוקיי, אז...
עוד אל תספר מה קורה בטעימה הבאה, אני
מה
חושב שגם תהיה...
טעימה הבאה. האמת של הטעימה הבאה יש לנו תכנון מאוד מאוד נחמד. טעימה הבאה שלנו, אני מתכנן פה להביא 6 עיינות, אותו יצרן, אני מקווה שיהיה לנו זמן ארוך איתו, וכוונתנו היא לעשות 6 עיינות ברעיון הלא טבעי לגמרי, כי דומיין דו פליקן הוא לא מוכרז כז'ורה טבעי ללא כלום, אבל בסגנון של הז'ורה, ואנחנו, טעימה הבאה שלנו תהיה 6 עיינות מפליקן, אז ככה חשיפה נחמדה לתחילת הטעימה.
ומה קורה לנו
ומה
הערב?
שיש לנו היום. אז אנחנו נתחיל עם השוואה בין שני השבלים, בין שני הקצוות של דבוקת הגרנד קרו של שבלי, מצד אחד הבלנשו, ומצד שני השבלי פרמייר קרו וולורה, שהוא אחד הפרמייר קרואים היותר מיוחדים, שיושב על דבוקת הגרנד קרואים בשבלי, נדיר ויחיד. לאחר מכן אנחנו נמשיך וניתן את שני האיטלקים, אנחנו תואמים היום את השבלים ביחד, שפטריק יעלה איתנו, אנחנו אחרי זה נתאם את בורלוטו לבד, לאחר מכן רואניה, לוקה גם יעלה איתנו, ולאחר רואניה נתאם את העיינות של תמורי סנדני 2017 של דוז'ק, ונסיים עם השמבול 2017 של רומיה, נדבר על כולם, ניתן זמן לכל יין, אנחנו איתכם, כל שאלה שיש לכם, גם לעניינים שיעלו, גם אלינו, בבקשה, אנחנו כאן, רואים את הצ'אט, ואל תתביישו לדבר.
השאלה הראשונה על ידי מיכל.
אפשר...
טברולי.
למזוג אותו לכוס?
כמובן שאם יש לכם, שיש כוסות הערב לטעימה, אני חושב שמבורך למזוג את כולם ובאמת לעקוב אחרי ההתפתחות של כל אחד.
אני שמעתי על חבר'ה גם שהזמינו הרבה מאוד יין, התקבצו ביחד וכבר הכינו כמה דיקנטרים בשביל...
אני אישית הייתי ממליץ 2 עיינות לתת להם קצת זמן בקוס, אם צריך 2 עיינות כאן, זה הרומיה שמבול מוזיני 17 והרואניה בורלוטו. פטריק איתנו, אני רואה את פטריק, בוא נשחרר לו את מספר 038582.
זה פטריק.
Hello, Patrick.
Hi,
How are
Patrick.
you?
Hello, how are you?
Good evening, Patrick.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, loud and clear.
Well, hey, open everybody.
You can fill in.
Cheers.
Fill in the...
Yeah.
מוזמנים
the both
להתחיל
of the
למזוג.
wines, the Volora 16 and with the label, so we can make sure you know.
Yeah, for me, I just took 2 bottles because I don't have the other wines for me to taste.
You go to the cellar, we will give you the list, and I'm sure with some of them you'll replace some wine. So maybe you can
I'm
manage.
sure, yes, I'm sure the tasting will be super. And definitely that there's some of the wine that you're going to taste that are top wines that I have in the cellar.
So we put the Premier Cru.
The Premier Cru in the left glass, and in the right one, the Chablis Grand Cru Blanchot. So, Patrick, can you speak a little bit about the domain and where you came from and the development of the domain to our clients before we start to speak about each wine and start to drink and enjoy that part as well?
Yes, so compared to the other winery that I've heard, I don't have the typical way to get to wines for the reason that I was born and raised in Montreal. All my family, I'm still Canadian, and everybody is still in Canada. What happened when I was young, it's a little bit like Danielle. I didn't like school, and school didn't like me. And instead of going to school and to do a normal cursus, I took a backpack and started traveling. And in my traveling, I encountered some people, and I encountered especially what became the love of my life is wine. So I've lived 3 years in Australia, 1 year in South Africa, and to start working into wine. Started to learn more, to know more, and people gave me more responsibility. Then came to France in 2000 in Burgundy, working for Olivier Leflèvre, where I met one of your fellow citizens that I don't know if he's at the tasting, but it's Doran Ravon. So also met him.
Winery, to all of us who don't know.
Yeah, so met him. Even went to Israel to do one vintage with him in 2003. And so worked for a few wineries, and in 2008 started on my own. The difference with the domains that you will taste is they own everything and they transform everything. Me, I buy all the grapes. We go and pick ourselves, and then we transform everything. So we have our own facilities and everything. We want to pick because the date of picking, the time of day of picking, and transformation is so important to us. And then we transform everything quite simply, but with our own details. And then there it is. So since 2008, we are on our own, and then happy to work with Bourgogne Crown, because knowing the passion that Daniel has, I think he's a good succession to us, from the grapes to you guys, the consumer.
Well appreciated, Patrick. Well apprecited.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm being a bit red.
So cheers with Patrick. The first
Cheers,
thing. Yeah.
Patrick. So everyone, cheers.
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 Thank you very much for being the first with us here. We have a great honor to welcome you here. Thank you so much to come on live with us and with the wine from France in this time. I'm very happy. We cannot bring our clients into the winery, but we can share our passion and love for the wine with you here.
We bring
at
clients.
Yeah, at this weird moment, it's easier to do it like that. And we have to reinvent a little bit tasting due to the fact that we cannot take planes and travel. But don't worry that as soon as flight will be reopened, I'll be with you soon.
Here.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. So the next tasting, you are here. That's
okay, perfect. It's a deal.
All right. So tell us a little bit about your winemaking style, the both of the crews, your philosophy in the winery and everything.
Yeah. So, well, first the philosophy of the winery is what Burgundy has taught me is the essence of the place. So the place where we pick the grape is the most important. We don't want to have our way of working the grape more important than the place itself. So our job is to be as transparent as possible. What we do, well, we pick everything by hand and we keep the stamp, because the stamp helps us, gives us a little bit of personality and helps us to drain the juice and to break the milrandage, which are very, very small berries that we often have in the vineyard, which is no fecundation of grapes, for the people that knows. And then we press with mechanical press instead of pneumatical press, which for me it's one main detail in white wine, because instead of going to 1.9 bar pressure, we go up to 5 bar pressure. So I think that we have a mid palate a lot more dense than with the other type of press. So we press very strong, but for a very long time. Then we go everything by gravity. So we don't want to intervene with pumps or anything, because they will break molecules, and molecules will bring oxygen, will tire the wine. I think we will be less precise if we do that. So our main focus is to be as precise as possible until the end. And then fermentation are usually very, very long. Example, on the 2016 that we have, fermentation, alcoholic fermentation finish in March. So we don't need to do bâtonnage, which is a stirring of lees, of solids, because as the longer you ferment, the longer you create gas, and the more the lees are in suspension. So you build the wine, but with purity. So that's a little bit the focus of the house, is to build a big wine, but most of the time on purity, or we try.
Well, I think you succeed.
I don't know. Well, 2016 was quite a challenging year. We started with a good crop, and we had a very difficult growing season, a lot of rain, difficult to do some, to take out a little bit of the disease or the mushroom that we have. So a lot more work for everybody, but we could succeed in a sense that we could bring the grape to an early picking stage of harvest. The philosophy of us is already to pick early, but as the wine you will taste, they're written 12.5 on the label, but they are actually 12.2. So we don't want to have a backbone on alcohol, we want to have the backbone on acidity. And the wine can only have one backbone, so those ones are very much on strong acidity. We have a little bit of a confit style in 2006 due to the vintage, because a lot of rain and then a lot of heat. So the skin maturity came from vegetal character to big skin maturity very fast. So our window of harvest was 9 days instead of usually 12 to 14 days. So we had to have a bigger team to be able to concentrate and to focus on the right picking dates for every grape.
So for you in 2016 vintage in Chablis, the main two problems were that on summer there was excessive heat, and on winter time there was too much rain, so the grapes got a little bit diluted.
No, the rain was actually during the growing season, because when we treat the vine, if we put a contact product to protect from the mushroom, if there is 25 millimeters of rain, the protection disappear. And in 2016, it was raining 25 millimeters every 2 days. Wow. So it was very difficult. It was very much hand labor, and the tractor could not go in the vineyard. So it was a lot of hand labor to be able to protect from disease.
Okay, thank you.
And those two, the two wines that that you guys have picked, Vaulorant and Blanchot. Vaulorant is actually on the north part of the Grand Cru. It actually touches Lépreuse. And Blanchot, which is a Grand Cru, which is the most south of the Grand Cru. The Grand Cru area in Chablis is very, very small, because it represents 100 hectares, which is, if we take one big Grand Cru of the Côte d'Or is Clos Vougeot, which is 58 hectares for one Grand Cru. For us, we have 100 hectares for 7 different Grand Cru. Vaulorant, we are very much on limestone. And the place where we are facing completely west. So we have the sun setting, which is having the skin maturity, and the sense of plantation is east-west, meaning that the sun is always on top of the vine from morning to night. As the Blanchot is planted north-south. So one side of the vines has the direct sun contact in the morning, and the other part of the vine has a direct sun contact in the afternoon. So we have a different type of skin maturity. We will always have more color on the Blanchot than on the Vaulorant due to the sun contact on the grape, due to the sense of plantation.
So it's very interesting. I think we can really see this in both the wines here. That was important for me. It's always nice to bring the same producer from the same vineyard and two different vintages, or the same vintage with two different wines, to completely understand the terroir or the vintage. Here we completely can understand the terroir, and you really see the mineral bone and this freshness of the Valois, almost a bit flinty, which the Blanchot is always giving such a pleasure with his wildness almost, and warmth, and more like the yellow flowers going up, and it's beautiful to see both of the wines here, I think.
Yeah,
really nice
Volaran is a little bit cooler, so a little bit more on acidity and bitterness that makes you saliva a little bit longer. And the Blanchot, always more on a tender, more voluptuous and richer wine.
That's really good. And guys, אם יש לכם, I will speak a little bit on Hebrew.
Yeah.
אם יש לכם שאלות, באמת בואו תשאלו עכשיו, גם בעברית, גם באנגלית. באנגלית פטריק יוכל לראות, בעברית אנחנו לגמרי יכולים לתרגם ולהגיד לו, אז כאילו, בבקשה לכו על זה, הוא כאן בשביל זה, הוא איתנו, ואני חושב שהוא גם ישמח. אנחנו כמובן נמשיך, אבל גם אתם מהבית, תמשיכו ותשאלו את השאלות שלכם. So Patrick, how's going on with the restaurants open back in France? Do you see an change coming?
It was good. Not too much difference. We went to a terrace to have a glass yesterday. It seems like people are forgetting a little bit that we had the disease because it was nice weather and on the terrace.
It's because the wine.
I don't know if the heat has done something to the virus or if it's not as spread as much due to the fact that we are summertime. Hopefully this is all behind us. I think we have saved quite a bit of life everywhere by what they've done. I think now that what we will have to do, that's why I went to the restaurant very fast, because now we have to protect the economy, because I think the biggest crisis will be in front of us. So everybody has to go to a restaurant to drink wine and to enjoy life.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's the way we support the economy. We already open here for more than a week now. Yeah, about something like that. And everyone's are out trying to, eat and drink and do everything until we might be closed up again. Hopefully not. And
Yeah, no, but now I think, but it seems like everything we have no more cluster or no more disease or anything, even since we have started to go out. So hopefully the beautiful days are in front of us, and think of it as we had time with family for those months, and that we have created good relation with kids and with friends, and that's it. It was a vacation, undue vacation.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably the longest time that no one ever stepped into the winery and made a tasting with you. It was like 3.5 months, and probably, yes, of course.
Yes, and as we export 95% of our production, none of our clients has come back yet. I know that my neighbor... Vacation. Pardon me?
I'm saying that's a true vacation. That's
completely, because usually we have about 80 to 100 tasting every year. Not having one tasting or one travel from my side in 4 months, it's unusual completely. So I know the people that sells in France start to have tasting again. One of my neighbor winery started this weekend that he started to do tasting again. He was like, "Oh, that's gonna be weird to taste again in the winery." So
tell me, Patrick, Can you tell me a little bit about what is the main difference of the soils and the character of the wine between the wines of Chablis and the wines of the Côte de Beaune? Because this is on live, it's the first time we taste Chablis. Yeah?
Yes.
So we tasted, actually, it's nice because we tasted on the first tasting Savagnières and after Sancerre of Pinard, which is a little bit like the terroir of Chablis. And then we moved to the Côte de Beaune. So can you let us a little bit give a kind of indication, explanation about the difference between the soils of Chablis and the soils of the Côte de Beaune?
The landscape and the soil of Chablis was made as during the Jurassic era, and everything was underwater during the Ice Age, meaning that all the soil that we have are clay and limestone, but they are from the sea. The clay is from sea soil. Everything, when there was Ice Age, all Chablis was underwater with glacier. And then when the glacier moved out and it melt not at the same speed, and it made some compression and decompression, creating some valleys, and left sometimes more clay and more limestone to other places. That's why we have so many different terroirs, even in one small valley, because if it unmelts fast at one point, we have a lot more clay. If it melts very, very slowly, we have a lot more clay in the limestone, in the soil. Clay will give a lot more fruit and fruit-forward wine, and the more we have limestone, the more it will be in spice and herbs. So Chablis is created with many valleys because there was one main arms of the glacier and then many little ramifications on the main glacier. But the first thing to understand is limestone will give us spice and herbs in taste, and clay will give us fruit in taste. Is that clear?
Now a little bit, yeah, absolutely. We will put a bit now the map of Chablis, so we can have the more indication of the.
Patrick, I have a question on the Volerin. Volerin is not a specific Premier Cru; it's inside Fourchaume, right? Fourchaume.
It's actually a subclimate inside Fourchaume.
Okay.
But it's only a politic decision because during the monks, because Chablis appellation, same as all the appellation AOC in France, started in 1937. Before that, basically, it was under the rule of the appellation was under what the monks has created 800 years ago. And Volerin was a tête de cuvée, the equivalent of all the other Grand Cru, the Blanchot, the Clos, and Valmur. And when in 1937 they decided to put Grand Cru, Chablis, Premier Cru, and Petit Chablis, everybody sat down at a table and they said, okay, we will start from the top, which is the Grand Cru. And they decided the Blanchot, all the 7 Grand Cru. And then the people that owned Volerin said, but what about us? Under the monks, we were tête de cuvée. And the people that had politic a little bit higher from Chablis said, you cannot be a Grand Cru because Volerin is on 2 different communes and not on the commune of Chablis on the cadastral part. So to hide the story, they put it under the Fourchaume subclimate.
Okay.
But for the monks, it was a Grand Cru.
And for me as well, actually. Every time I taste Volerin, even when, we have most of us here, the first winery we know in Chablis, which is import for many years, is Fèvre. And for him, also for Fèvre, for me, was always one of my favorite wine was the Volerin. In the start, I didn't understand. I opened the map, I understood. But I think here, the Volerin, which was pretty much similar from start to now with this very fresh acidity and mouth
Nice
feeling.
texture on the palate.
But then the Blanchot completely changed from the time we opened, and now all the minerality start to go up, and a lot of freshness came inside the wine. It was a little bit like shy, and now it's really open up, and you get all the complexity of the Grand Cru and what we feel here. So for sure, Bolora for me is also kind of Grand Cru, but then
It's a little bit of a Grand Cru, but from a cooler area, and Blanchot is a Grand Cru from a very warm area.
when it's nice to taste the Blanchot so young. Many times I have the more older expressions of Blanchot from many producers, but then, or not so many, but from some producers, but then Ravno and a little bit more, but no. So then here I really feel, you know, how it's expressing itself. Every minute coming, it's opening and opening more taste, more flavors, more intensity and more complexity, and even the length on the palate is becoming longer and longer.
Yes, no, but what you did that for the tasting, not to send you flowers, guys, but to be able to pour in small bottles, so the wine took a little bit of oxygen during the day before you ship. I think the wine is a lot more open now than me that I open it 1 hour before the tasting. I think it's for young wine, oxygen is the best friend. For old wine, oxygen is the biggest enemy.
And then we have a question here asking, does the generosity of the wine is coming from the
From the skin.
From the skin, sorry.
From the pulp.
From the skin.
Pulp of the grape.
Never, because Chardonnay, the skin, there is no point to do a skin contact on Chardonnay, because Chardonnay, the skin is only an envelope. There is the yeast and everything on top of it, but all the tastes come from inside the grape. The skin is compared to Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling, Gewürztraminer, which the skin will give a taste to the wine. Chardonnay, the skin is completely tasteless. It's only an envelope. All the taste will come from the lees, which is the material, the solids in the juice, but the skin will give us nothing in Chardonnay.
Cool, that's fine, that's nice. What about one thing we didn't speak about, the wood treatment? The wood percentage, the bigger barrels, smaller, everything, what you can tell us about that?
So that for us, now be ready, because I have a different vision on wood than most of the people. Well, Daniel knows, but I'll tell to everybody. Me, I buy only very old barrel. So when I say old barrel, what I will buy this year is from 2012. So we still have barrel from 2002, 2004, 2007, 2008. When I buy barrel, it's just to have a bit more barrel, because I don't have much casualty or dying barrels. It's just to grow a bit more the quantity of barrel. So I buy old barrel only from high acidity vintages. Let me explain. Is a barrel give a lot of flavor to the juice on the first year, because an exchange always goes on the two sides. So if you have the barrel giving a lot of wood flavor to the wine on the first year, the vintage will also mark the barrel for life. I will take an example for 2005. The barrel tastes like apricot because the vintage was very mature. So I buy only very high acidity vintage barrel. So we have 2002, 2004, 2007, 2008, 2010, 2000. Now we will buy 12. Because the more the vintage is high on acidity, the more the barrel will be neutral for life. So I don't want to put any anything that will change the vintage. I want to be on purity all the time. And we buy barrel from only northern part of France. So, well, a little bit in Côte d'Or, a little bit in Chablis, and most of it, we buy it from Champagne, because Champagne harvests higher acidity and closer to us.
That's really nice. Well, אם יש לכם עוד שאלות לפטריק, נראה לי זאת אחלה של הזדמנות לשאול אותו, דרכנו או ישירות אליו, ואם לא, בהחלט נוכל להגיד לו בקרוב תודה רבה. So, Patrick,
now you are going to Italy?
Now we are going to Italy. Yeah, it's not so far from you, a few hours drive.
Yeah.
From us.
We will go to a new two guys from Italy. One will be the Fabio Burlotto Barolo 2013, and the other one will be Luca Roagna, the Barolo Comune du Barolo 2013 as well. And afterward, we will have the Dujac and Roumier, both the 2017s. So we went to a huge Italian harvest, vintage, and to in Burgundy, we moved, some 16, not an easy vintage, as you said, and 17, not the most famous one, but I think we can see a wonderful 16s and see that the potential this vintage have for drinking is amazing, because for me it's so nice to drink now the 16s. They have still the nice acidity, maybe they are a little bit more white, but they don't have this kind of very hot expression or too cold. It's beautiful, and your work
and I think wine very much to put with food.
Yes.
You just want more of them. I just finished my glasses, and I still have my saliva.
Exactly. Yeah.
Working.
You're just looking to eat something to go along with it.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
we should call
you are really. The only thing I can say is enjoy, be safe, all of you. Enjoy the time, enjoy the tasting, and everybody at the tasting, you are in very good hands with that team. And I was very happy to be with you guys.
And you are more than welcome to stay with us and see our tasting. And I'm very happy that we're going to see you soon, hopefully in Chablis, and to welcome you here as you promised. So whenever the flights are starting...
Harvest will be early, so I can come early.
Maybe before you go, you can tell us some small words about the 2020 harvest coming soon, because it's something special with the early vintage this year.
For the first time in my life, we will harvest in August. So we don't need to, as France usually is completely closed in August for the full month. This year, we will have to be back from vacation in August, but we already have 3 months of vacation. So we will be ready for harvest. What will be the main difference is from harvesting in September, which is the day, we lose about 3 minutes of sunlight from August to September every day. So now we will have longer day of sunlight and warmer nights. So we will have to be careful on skin maturity and not to be too heavy on fruit. So we will be careful on having, try to make a sharp wine and be ready as soon as the skin is perfect.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick.
Cheers and see you soon.
Thank you. Enjoy the tasting, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Wonderful time. Ciao, Patrick.
Wonderful
Ciao,
wines.
ciao.
No, but you can stay with us, Patrick, of course. But we moved to Hebrew.
Yeah, we moved to Hebrew.
Yeah, move to Hebrew.
Doron to translate. Doron can translate.
Yeah. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
ciao, ביי, פטריק.
אוקיי.
אז היה לנו פה גם פרימייר קרו, גם גרנד קרו.
פרימייר שמתנהג כמו
כן,
גרנד,
שמתנהג כמו
גרנד
גרנד.
שמתפתח כמו גרנד קרו.
גרנד שמתנהג כמו
ממש
גרנד
יפה,
גם, וגם, כן. לפעמים, שבלי זה אזור ענק, אמרתי את זה גם לדעתי בטעימה הראשונה, הם עושים, אם אני לא טועה, 200 מיליון בקבוקים סך הכל, כמות נפילות, מה שנקרא שיש בשבלי, היא בלתי נגמרת, וגם פה אני חושב שהיצרן מדבר, לצערי פשוט מדבר הרבה מעבר לטרואר, האם עדיף, מה שנקרא, לקחת את היצרן הטיפה יותר, שאתה טיפה יותר מכיר, אוהב, מכיר את הסגנון, מאשר מה שנקרא ללכת על השבלי סופר והכל טוב ויפה, עינות שונים לחלוטין, אין קשר ביניהם, אחד מבטא בדיוק את האזור ובדיוק את המקום, ושני כבר מדבר בשפה אחרת. אני חושב שקיבלנו פה ביטוי מצוין לכמה פרימייר קרו יכול להיות גדול, וכמה גרנד קרו באמת יכול להיות צריך את הזמן שלו, והנפח שהיה לו בפלט לברנצ'ו היה פנטסטי.
וגם הסיומת הזאת, הסיומת של הוולורה, שבאמת הולכת אחורה וכזה, הולכת בדיוק לאסידיטי סייד, לכל הצד של המליחות הזאת, ונגיעות כאלה קרירות מגיעות לך, ובאמת הבלנצ'ו מתיישב לך על הפלט, הולך ככה לכל המקומות הקצת יותר חמים, עירים.
הוא הסביר בצורה מאוד טובה, כאילו בסוף את ההבדל בין פרימייר לגרנד, אתה פתאום אומר, כאילו...
כן. טוב, אז באמת תודה רבה לפטריק פה שהיה איתנו, וזה היה נחמד מאוד, ואנחנו יכולים לעבור ליין הבא. אנחנו עוזבים את צרפת, קופצים לאיטליה. רגע לפני שאנחנו נתחיל לטעום את היין, אנחנו פה נעלה וידאו קצר, פביו בורלוטו היום בארוחת פיצה אצל החברים של אשתו, ולכן הוא לא יכל להצטרף אלינו,
אבל הוא אמר אין מצב שאנחנו עוברים את הסבל הזה בלי...
אבל ביקשתי ממנו איזה סרטון יפה, והוא שלח לנו, ואנחנו נראה אותו עכשיו לפני הטעימה. אז תשתיק אותנו, תראה לנו את הסרטון, ונתקדם הלאה.
Ciao a tutti, I'm sorry we cannot taste the wine together, but I'm sure you will have fun with Daniel. I think we'll taste the Barolo Classico 13. Our Barolo Classico is made with the old philosophy in Barolo to blend different vineyards together. In our Barolo Classico, all the vineyard comes from Verduno, and so you really can appreciate the aromatics, the finesse, the elegance that we can have in this part of Barolo. Vintage 13. In this vintage, we had a quite cold spring, sunny but not extremely hot summer, and the harvest was quite late in the season. So it is what we can call a classic vintage. Ciao ciao, and I hope you will enjoy the wine.
אז זה היה פביו בורלוטו, שמעתם כולם את המילים, את ההסברים, ואפשר למזוג, מקווה שמזגתם את היינות, אז אם לא, פביו בורלוטו, דבר אחד, התווית כתוב עליה ברולו 2015, היין הוא 2013, פשוט לא היה לנו את התווית של 13, שאר היינות בדיוק, ביין הזה אנחנו תואמים בורלוטו ברולו 2013. אסף, תן לנו אולי איזה כמה מילים מהצד שלך על בורלוטו, ורדונו, קצת דברים מעבר למילים שלו.
אני חושב שזה גם יכול להיות אחלה זמן להעלות את המפה שיהיה בדיוק על ורדונו, ונוכל גם טיפה לראות, כי פיימונטה בכללי זה אזור גדול, ברולו זה אזור גדול שמתחלק לכמה כפרים שונים, וממש אפשר... אני חושב שזאת גם אחת הגדולות של ברולו, וברברסקו, היכולת באמת להבדיל בין טרואר אחד לשני, בין כפר אחד לשני, מדהימה. פה אנחנו מסתכלים על הכפר הצפוני ביותר, שנקרא ורדונו. מי שקצת מכיר את בורלוטו יכול כבר לראות את השם הגדול, מונביליארו, שזה באמת היין אולי הכי ידוע שלו. ורדונו זה הכפר הכי צפוני, זה הכפר הכי קריר גם בברולו, לעומת סרלונגה ולמורה, שזה פשוט כפרים טיפה יותר חור, מעיינות עם פריט מעט יותר בשל, טיפה יותר רך. בעיינות מוורדונו ספציפית ומעיינות של פביו, קלים הרבה קור, הרבה מה שנקרא הרבל פרשנס, פשוט הסבוניות כזאת מרעננת, הפרי טיפה יותר מתעסק בסגנון דובדבן, טארט, פחות השזיף הזה שמקבלים במרכז ברולו, ואני חושב ש...
הפינו של ברולו. אני מתבלבל תמיד בין פינו לגרנש קצת בעניין של
נכון,
בורלוטו קצת, אבל...
בדיוק בעניין של בורלוטו, בכלל אני חושב שכל היצרנים שאנחנו תורמים היום, יש להם את הקו הזה של ההרבל פרשנס שאנחנו מדברים, העצבוניות המרעננת, בורלוטו ידוע שהוא אוהב לעשות במונגלירו שלו שזרות, פה אין שזרות, אם כי היין פשוט תואם פרש ברמה שיש פה שזרות.
כן.
אני חושב שיש פה פשוט ביטוי קלאסי לכפר הזה שנקרא ורדונו, ואנחנו מעללים את פאביו בורלוטו כמובן, יצרן ענק, אבל זה באמת ככה תואם ורדונו, ויש לו מאוד סגנון שונה מהכפרים האחרים.
אז באמת אנחנו יכולים לדבר על באמת ורדונו מול השאר, אנחנו רואים פה באמת פרי קצת יותר אדום, המון מינרליות גם שבא, זאת אומרת, אנחנו מרגישים את הברזליות הזאת שיש לנו, אבל היא מאוד מאוד יפה, היא לא מגיעה לנו כמו משהו המאוד מאוד קשוח הזה, יש כאן את המבנה הטניני של ברולו לגמרי, אבל יחד עם זה, יש בו משהו מאוד רך, מאוד נעים הפה, תזכור שאנחנו גם לא שותים את היין עם אוכל, וגם אנחנו עברנו מיין שכמובן אין לו כל כך טניני משבלי, אז אנחנו גם בעצמנו נשטוף לעצמנו טיפה את הפלט, שזה ממש יעזור לנו ויהיה לנו נעים במעבר. ממליץ גם לכם בבית, אם אתם לא אוכלים ליד, שותים, טיפה לרענן את הפלט במעבר בין אדום ללבן, בין לבן לאדום, כי תמיד אנחנו נרגיש שהאדום הוא קצת יותר טניני וקשוח אחרי הלבן.
אני חושב מה באמת החבר'ה בבית חושבים על היין הנפלא הזה, ואולי גם על היינות הקודמים, אבל...
אני חושב שכבר מהערכה הראשונה של הכוס אפשר לזהות עשייה מאוד מאוד מסורתית, שום דבר מהטרנד הזה שקפץ בשנות ה-90 של החביות הקטנות, חדשות, לרכך את הטנינים, להוסיף אקסטרקציה, יש פה השראיה קרה, ארוכה, אבל באמת לא עם הרבה אקסטרקציה, שזה הכי חשוב. העישון נעשה בבוטי, חביות סלובניות מאוד מאוד גדולות של, אני לא טועה, 6,000 ליטר.
לפחות, אצל בורלוטו יש כמה, 6,000, 10,000, וגם, אתה יודע, החביות האלה צריך להבין, הן מורכבות בתוך היקב. אין לי כאן תמונה של בורלוטו, אבל הייתי מעלה לשים איזו תמונה, אבל העשייה של פאביו, כל התסיסה גם בתוך מחלי עץ גדולים.
כמובן ישנים, שום דבר שם לא חדש, ניטרלים.
לחלוטין. התסיסות כאן, לדוגמה, בגלל שאנחנו מקבלים נביולו מאוד מאוד קשוח באזורים אחרים, לדוגמה, אנחנו נראה אחרי זה מה קורה אצל רואניה, אבל הרבה יותר ימים של השריה חמה במקומות האחרים כדי לרכך קצת את הנביולו. פה אין לנו השריה חמה ארוכה, צרה יחסית מאוד דומה לסטייל הזה, ובשבילי הוא תמיד נותן לי שני דברים. הוא נותן לי מאוד את הפינו הבורגוני הזה שנע קצת בין קוד דה בון למורה סנדני כזה כמעט, ומאוד מאוד את קומנדו ג'י. סטייל של קומנדו ג'י בספרד, הגרנש מהמקומות הכי גבוהים. שוב, אתה מרגיש פה שזה נביולו מטרואר מאוד גבוה, מאוד קר, מאוד מינרלי.
גם פה כמובן זה טרואר מאוד גבוה באזור ורדונו, זה כמעט 400 מטר, 400-450, וספק מה שנקרא elevation, הגובה פשוט נותן פה את הקור ואת הפינס ואת העדינות.
חבל על הזמן. חבר'ה, אם יש לכם פה שאלות, איך אתם מתרשמים מהיין, נשמח קצת לשמוע ממכם. אנחנו שמחים שהיה פה את פטריק אותנו, אבל באמת נשמח לקרוא קצת אתכם, שאלות, דברים, יש לכם משהו להגיד על שני השבלים הראשונים, בשמחה רבה, וגם כמובן פה על היין הנפלא הזה. אז בציר 13, בציר קלאסי, ענק, אחד הבצירים הטובים ביותר ב-20 שנים האחרונות בפיימונטה, 2010, 2013, 2016, יש לנו 3 בצירים ענקיים בתקופה האחרונה, וזה פשוט כיף, זה פשוט זמני הבציר, זמנים מושלמים, כיוון אמצע אוקטובר, אנחנו מדברים פה על, אתה מרגיש פה שלמות בין הרעננות של החומצה לאלכוהול ולטנינים. זאת אומרת, פיימונטה ונביולו בכלל בנוי ממשהו מאוד מעניין. הרבה טנינים, הרבה אלכוהול וחומצה מאוד גבוהה, שבדרך כלל יש לנו חלק מהם, ולהשתלט על המפלצת הזאת של נביולו זה לא פשוט בכלל, ואני חושב שכאן, ובציר כמו 13, שהטבע נותן משהו באמת מושלם בין החומציות, האלכוהול והטנינים.
אני
באמת.
חושב שהוא שאל מה זה בציר גדול, זה בסוף האיזון בין כל הדברים שמרכיבים את הבציר. טמפרטורות, הפרש טמפרטורות בין יום ללילה, כמות גשם בשנה, זמנים שאתה בוצר, עבודה בקרמים.
אז שבעצם פטריק אומר שהבציר 2020 צפוי להיות באוגוסט. מה אתם צופים?
אנחנו מפחדים? אנחנו נשמע, כדי להכין בציר כזה, כאן אנחנו מדברים על שבלי, אבל זה כמובן רלוונטי גם לכל אזור שבו יש בציר שמאוד מוקדם. עכשיו, יש כאן עניין, ההבשלה הפנולית שיש לנו לענב, והאלכוהול גם מצד שני. זאת אומרת, אנחנו צריכים, למרות שהבציר מאוד מאוד מבשיל מהר, למצוא את הנקודה, למצוא שעדיין שומרים על מספיק רעננות, שהחומציות עדיין שם, ושזה לא פתאום הולך להיות לנו משהו סופר כבד, גדול, אלכוהולי, או מצד שני, אם יורד הרבה גשם, פתאום כלומר, חומצה נעלמת, אז יש לנו המון פעולות שצריך לעשות על מנת לבצור את הדבר הזה בזמן, וזה במיוחד בעבודת קרמים מאוד מאוד קשה במשך השנה.
זאת אומרת, בבצירים כאלה, התפקיד של היינן הוא נכנס ברובד מאוד מרכזי.
לקרן. ובציר 13, לדוגמה, כי אנחנו טועים כזה בציר גדול, זה מה שדומה לנו לבציר 15, לבציר 18 בבורגונים ארצים. בצירים שבהם אתה קצת, אתה יודע, הטבע עושה את שלו, נותן לך את כל הדברים, ומה שאתה צריך לעשות זה בדרך כלל, אתה יודע, אתה שומר על הסטייל שלך והסגנון, אבל הטבע נותן לך כמעט את הכל. זאת אומרת...
וכן גם רואים כאלה שב-13 הולכים בצירים, שאתה יודע, זה בציר גדול, אז כולם אומרים, בציר גדול, אני עושה את העין הכי גדול שלי, וגרוב נופלים בזה, כי בציר גדול, נכון, הרבה צבע, הרבה אלכוהול, בחוצה, עשית אקסטרקציה גבוהה, חטפת את כולם במכה, שיכול להיות שזה הדבר שנכון לעתיד. אבל כיום אפשר לראות אם בחרנו באמת שני יצרנים אולי טובים ביותר בברולו, ואיך שניהם מתעסקים בעידון, מהטובים. איך הם מתעסקים בעידון הטנינים, בפילוש שלהם, פשוט משהו, לגרום שיהיה טיפה יותר, כן.
אני חושב שיש כאן שני דברים, אנחנו נראה, כשרואניה זה יהיה דרך הקרם, וכמובן דרך אחרי זה העשייה של העניינים האלה, כאן אנחנו מין דרך הקרם, כמובן שאני לא מזהה בעשייה של פביו, העשייה של פביו נהדרת, אבל חוץ ממנה, יש לנו כאן גם את הטרואר של ורדונו. And I see that we have Luca Roania with us, with all his wonderful
bodies behind him.
Bodies behind him, his special ones. And 1 second, we will take you out from mute. 1 second, because we want to hear you. Shout more strong.
תחזור לזה.
So, אנחנו יכולים לראות את המקום של לוקה שם, את החדר חביות שלו. בעצם זה החדר חביות של לוקה, ואנחנו... Luca, we can hear you.
Great.
Do you hear me?
Yes,
Absolutely. Such a beautiful room.
Oh,
yeah.
You chose the best view, Luca. Really the best view. So I think this will be the time that we can pour the Barolo di Comune.
Barolo di Comune de Barolo.
Comune de Barolo, right.
So, Luca, first of all, how are you? How do you feel?
Really good, really good. No, I'm here in Lange. We are okay, and the season is going really well. Yeah, we are happy.
We just spoke with Patrick פיוז actually, about how early is 2020 coming in Burgundy. How is for you in Italy until now? How is for you in Piedmont until now?
Well, I think we are between 10 days and 2 weeks earlier than the last years. But in a way, we had a good winter. The first period of the season, it was quite dry. 2 months without rain, and after in the last 6 weeks, we had more or less every week a little bit of rain. And I think this is really helpful for the summertime and for the vintage 2020. Now the flowering is finished, or not everywhere. In the lower part of the hills, we still have a little bit of flowering, but in the historical part of the old vines, everything is done. And also it was good. We had no rain during the flowering, and this means we didn't lost production.
So thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you very much for being with us. This is such a great honor for me. You know, I like to hug you there next to the bars and all the big ones, but to have you here is such an exciting moment, really.
Really,
Luca, for me personally,
It's wonderful.
for me personally, is the one god and legend for me in Piedmont and in Italy. Is D1,
Exactly.
with his special wine making, with his 100% passion for the wine, for everything he does. From the first moment he's going into the vineyard, after before for the new vintage, after the last harvest, and until he's marking with the Roania fire, the mark on the box wood, you know, the wooden boxes, and during everything. So, you know, I can say a lot of things, but I really, really want that all my clients will hear you. If you can really tell us a bit from the start of the working in the vineyards, your special working in the vineyard, your special vinification, and your special bottling. Even if you want, you can speak about your special capsule.
I don't like to be really boring.
You can see the people here, they don't see me so excited, you know, and you can see my partner, my girlfriend, everything at home. So she knows how much I excite when I open your bottles, you know, and to see you here, it's amazing, really. So first of all, cheers. Thank you very much for coming to be with us before everything.
Cheers.
It's an honor to be with you. Really, big pleasure. And really, I hope to see you soon, because we need some time together.
We need it for sure.
Yeah. Talking about, I don't like to be boring, but I would like to tell you a few things about our estate. It's 100% family business. I work with my father, Alfredo, and with my girlfriend, Romina. And more or less, that's it. We have 3 employees, and they help us mainly in the vineyard work, because we have 15 hectares, and we need help for the main works. Talking about the beginning, for example, the pruning of the vines is only the work of me and my father. All the vines older than 50 years is the work of Alfredo, my father, because nobody is allowed to cut old vines, and is him work. I am allowed to cut vines below 50 years old. Anyway,
like you're allowed to drink, like you're allowed to drink wines from 82 up.
Exactly. Yes, but we need the strict rules, because, you know, when we start open bottles, and you know really well, after the 3rd or the 4th bottle, maybe I am too happy and I start open all the historical. And, no, but it's really, really family business. We try to keep our idea of farmers. I don't want to become a PR of our estate. I am a farmer. I try to spend more time as possible in our vineyards. Of course, I have to take care about the wine in cellar and also the bureaucracy. This means ideally it would be nice to stay 7 days a week in vineyards, but usually it's more or less half of the time. For my father, it's different. My father is really the true farmer, and 7 days a week is always in the vineyard. I spoke with him 5 minutes ago, and he told me he was in Asili today for, you know, for the leaf, I don't know, you know, my English is not enough good, but for keep the canopy and put around the last line. Exactly, you understood, Bravi. And what other? We are known to be quite wild in our approach in the vineyards. This means we believe in the idea of the forest, because the forest is the perfect habitat for life, for animals, for trees, and is why we don't do anything in our vineyards. We don't cut grass. We don't work the soil. We try to have a perfect balance. We are closer to the idea of the permaculture. And it's good because if somebody visit us or visited us know really well that in our vineyards, we have maybe 1,000 or many different thousands of varieties, full of flowers, different colors, and 7, 8 different varieties of mint, and this is the same for every kind of vegetable. And for us, it's so important to have this biodiversity because the vines need a perfect habitat for a nice life in balance. I don't have a sommelier education. This means sometimes I don't find all the flavors inside of my wine. I am more an agronome. I have an agronomic education, and I'm sure that if I work with 100, 200 different kind of grass, when they die, they will make a compost really more complete and complex than if I have only 1 or 2 kind of grass. And you have to consider that if I work the soil, this is not really good. But also if I cut the grass often, what I do is more a selection of some kind of grass, the most strong, the most resistant, but in a way I kill other kind of grass. And for us, it's so important the grass go in flowers, fruits, and seeds for the reproduction. And in this way, you can see a lot of biodiversity. And when we talk about agronomy, we think always of the roots of the vines. And the roots of the vines with this humidity, with the compost of the grass, is really important because it starts some symbiosis and is impossible without the grass. We believe in the idea of the old vines, and I am lucky because in our family, my father, mother, grandfather, mother, great-grandfather, and we can go back in many other generations. Nobody made big mistakes like rip a vineyard. And now we can work with a lot of old vines, and we consider old vines when the vines start become more than 50 years old. Talking about this historical period, the young old vines are more than 78 years old. We have vines with a little bit more than 100 years old, but is only a little part. We still have a little part of ungrafted vines also, but not everywhere, only in few vineyards. Everything, of course, the vines are really old. This means clones are not really exactly what we like. And, but also when I have to replace one vine who died, what we do is always work with the selezione massale, the massal selection from our old vines. By single vineyard, we use MGA, menzione geografica aggiuntiva, like Cru in Burgundy or in other regions. In every MGA, we have the wood from that place. This means during the pruning, if I decided to replace some vines, I use the wood from the old vines, a little bit selected by aesthetic, and a little bit is selected completely random. And this is important because I don't know what's happened all around the world, but here we always talk more and more about biodiversity, but what I can see is often people work with a few clones bought on the supermarket of the vineyards. And when we talk about Nebbiolo, we talk about, I don't know, 10, 12. This is quite boring. Our idea is more to make a concert with 1,000 and 1,000 different players, and every player is a different vine.
This one is definitely a concert.
No, but of course, we think the perfect doesn't exist. But the good thing about the great varieties you are trying this night, but also the Nebbiolo, is that is unique. Unique talking about any kind of detail inside of the wine. And in every hill, sometimes in the same hill, we have different expressions. And from my point of view, it doesn't make any sense take vines, clones, or vines from another hill and plant in my place. We have, it's close to 1,000 years, we have documentation about Nebbiolo in our hills, and it's important to keep the same vines in the same hills. If we destroy these, we kill a big part of the biodiversity. And in our state, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we can take a sip.
Yes, just a small one.
Small one.
I'm quite
It's really
curious.
dry. It's really dry in cellar, I think. Yeah, we have 80%.
Always dry in your
humidity
cellar.
and-
That's why we need to drink a lot in your cellar. You
Oh
know?
yes, oh yes.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. We can move a bit to the harvest times and
Oh yes. Oh, yes.
special vinification there. They're behind you.
You can see is my nice wallpaper.
You make me, you know, I have too much. It's difficult for me to be here and see you from so far.
No, but of course I can turn a little bit my computer and I show you. I hope you see the concrete barrels.
The most amazing place.
Wow.
Special build.
Yes, we build ourselves. And okay, talking about Nebbiolo vinification, the classic vinification have to be made in wood. We like really long macerations. We talk about 60 to 80, 90 days of skin contact. Sometimes also a little bit more, depends of the vintage. It's not important for us to have more days, depends of the quality of the skin. And we always consider the maceration like an infusion, or is an infusion, and have to be as nice and as soft as possible. This means not a lot of, or no pumping over, or maybe one a day for a few minutes during the full fermentation, only to keep a little bit wet the skins. And closer to the end of the fermentation, we lock the cap, and we keep, we lock the cap with the plank of oak, and we keep the barrel completely full with the skins. We use the name submerged the cap. We keep the cap submerged, and this is for a couple of months. It's an old technique, but in this way, the barrels are completely full. This means I have no problems of volatile or bacteria. And also I have a really noble extraction. I always like to compare with the philosophy of the tea, the maceration of Nebbiolo, is that more is soft, more is elegant. And I don't want extract too much, but I want extract the noblesse from the variety. And is why sometimes friends ask if 60, 70 days of maceration means bigger extraction. And no, is wrong. Is more balance, more equilibrium inside of the wine, but not higher quantity of substance. Is only more balance and I think finesse also. And of course, the aging is in wood, depends of which wine, and the aging is until 5 years between wood and concrete. When you are trying the Barolo of Barolo, and the barrels are a little bit smaller. I show you the two, some of the barrels you can see are little less than 10 hectoliters. Depends of the vintage, but of this wine we make 1,100, 900 bottles, 1,200 bottles. Is really tiny. And this means the barrel have to be smaller, but always one barrel for each wine. We don't do blend, we don't mix. The wine have to age in one barrel for as long as possible, and until show the beauty. When is enough, we put in concrete until the 5th year. Sometimes people ask why 5 years, because we consider 5 years the correct time for the Nebbiolo for show the beauty. And I have so different vineyards. For example, the Paillet need always more time in wood. Vineyards like Pira in Barolo need less time. I age 2, 3 years, 4 years in wood, and the last part in concrete until the 5th year. And after 5 years, I do the bottling for each single vineyard at the same time. I don't want too many differences. Every step have to be made at the same time. The difference shoved inside of the wine have to be only the parcel.
Luca,
Sì.
you hear me?
Yes.
Can you just explain a little bit about the vineyard for this specific wine and for a little bit the vintage?
Yes. Okay. Talking about the soil composition, I think you know that we talk about soil with 15 millions of year in Barolo and Barbaresco area. Talking about Barolo del Comune di Barolo, I think you have this wine, is from Barolo village, of course. Is not our property, is one of the few vineyards we vinify, not our property, and is property of my girlfriend, Romina. We talk about a really big vineyard, 0.17 hectares.
Huge,
Zero.
the biggest.
Is really huge. We no, but in a way I can make 1 barrel. Is too much for drink ourselves. This means we have to release the wine, unfortunately.
That's
okay.
possible. But you know, when I taste it now, I think we should leave it in the cellar.
Because you come and we drink all the barrel together.
Exactly. It depends the vintage. But you know, so this is one thing about that. The second thing you told us is about 5 years aging to make the wine ready and complete for you by the aging.
Yes.
And how do you make those beautiful tannins? I mean, the wine is like absolutely magical. Also, our clients here, you know, they are writing to us on everything, you know, telling us how great the wine and the balance and the elegance, of course, you told, but it's such a beautiful structure of tannins, you know, you get them and then they go a little bit, they melt in your mouth so beautifully. And as well, for the 2013 vintage, short explanation, as we said before, it's such a great vintage, and we would like to know why a great vintage is a great vintage in Piedmont, and the dates and harvest and during that.
Okay. No, it's so interesting, but it's quite simple. We try to make less mistakes as possible. This means, Daniel, it's true. And
Yes,
we don't want, or of course, you always find a little fingerprint of the producer in every wine, but we try to make a step back and show more the beauty of each single vineyard. And this means work in a classic way is the system to keep the identity of the Nebbiolo. We don't, in our area, the Nebbiolo with the new oak, could be barrique or could be big barrels, but new with a lot really toasted doesn't work, because we have a really nice tannin inside of the variety. If we have too much new wood, is completely covered by the toasted expression, and this is not the classic Nebbiolo. The beauty of the Nebbiolo is the purity, the elegance, and also I remember my grandfather Giovanni always told me that if the wine is not good at the beginning, doesn't become really
it will
good.
not be nice at the end.
No, of course, maybe the wine is closed, is not perfect, but I don't trust the people tell me, oh no, now it's green, is really, but in 10 years will be better. No, in 10 years, the wine will lose the fruit, will be with green tannins and not at all interesting. This means we have to make something really nice from the beginning. And of course, I like the complexity inside of the Nebbiolo. When it's in the fruit expression, is nice. A lot of people now enjoy the primary of the wines. But the great thing about the Nebbiolo, the Pinot Noir, or great other varieties is what's happened also with aging. And if you check, different vineyards are already different after the vinification. If you check the new wine after the alcoholic fermentation, you check the Asili, you check the Barolo and the Pira, the wines are different. For me, this is what I try to make, the identity of each parcel. And talking about the Barolo is from Terlo parcel. I think you see the map. More or less, we are in the center. You can see we are really close to the village of Barolo, and the parcel is in Terlo, but in the corner with the Ravera. You can see.
Nice corner. Good corner.
You go down from Terlo at the end of Terlo, and you see Ravera vineyard.
And what is special about Terlo?
Okay, but for me, and is why I use the name Barolo del Comune di Barolo and not Terlo, is that Terlo is often a little bit more austere because, you know, from the village, you go a little bit higher in altitude. The soil is more rocky, and what makes the wine is a little bit more austere. For my point of view, our Barolo del Comune di Barolo is not austere at all because is at the end of Terlo in the corner with Ravera, and also is influenced by Le Coste. I think you know Rinaldi really well, great ambassador of Barolo and the most amazing wine from Le Coste. And that soil is not anymore austere, show a really nice beauty like the Ravera. For my point of view, this is more a village wine with the beauty of the Barolo appellation. And this is why we decided to put Barolo di Barolo and without the MGA inside.
That's nice. Actually, you know, I look for, I'm here on the, here and I'm looking and I want to see the one, and this one is closed. The other one is done. I go here, I take, you know, even the photographer goes, and you know, I'm like, there is nothing. I will take for myself because, you know, he's young, so he can drink less and work more, you know. So
no, but
the wine is amazing. I mean, really such a beautiful expression.
Definitely.
Your touch with this unbelievable rust, you know, I cannot like more rust than that, you know. It's amazing, and with this florality and the complexity of the wine, and the 13 is the first vintage for you.
13 first vintage, and yeah.
Wow.
I started. Okay, I am with Romina from 2010, and I think we started, me and my father, we started follow a little bit the vineyard from 2011. And from 2013, we decided to vinify the parcel because, of course, 3 years is really short time, but the vineyard really started showing nice beauty, nice vegetation, more biodiversity. And also the vines are from 1967. This means are closer to 50 years old. Yes, around 50 years old. And
you know, 53, but yeah, it's good.
No, but yeah. Of course, for us, the decision to put Vecchie Viti is made if really is long time we work in a vineyard, and we see really another depth inside of our wines. I think all our young vines now are closer to 50 years old, 40, 50 years old. But if you compare with young vines and Vecchie Viti, old vines, you will see another texture, another dimension in the old vines, another saltiness. And is why it's not only a decision of 51 years old become a Vecchie Viti. No, have to be old, but have to show also this character inside of the wine. And for a vineyard, we started only a few years ago, it's too early. We have to wait, I think, other 10, 15 years to see what's happened and if the wine become with this third dimension inside.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with you after drinking so much Vecchie Viti with you. You can see this wine is I love its expression because for me it's, you know, you have your Barolo Pira, but suddenly a really classic Barolo, almost, you know, like the you know, Mascarello way and that ones, and, you know, Barolo of Roani, you know, the Pira, it's really more a classic expression of Barolo, but then you have it's more lean. And I think when you work the vineyards and it's coming older, you have more wideness, more complexity, like you say, a third dimension. But you know, this one is such a beauty to drink and enjoy even now. Of course, you have a great future, but I don't feel like this is the wine I open and I say, my God, I should wait 5-10 years more, you know, like most of the wine me and you drink. But then I want to ask you about 13.
Yes.
What makes 2013 such a great vintage?
Okay, no, it's quite boring vintage. Really boring,
Yeah.
because it was
for you, because you don't need to do nothing.
Yes, no work in the vineyards, no work in the cellar.
No, well, I am always more happy when we have some challenging, because of course I think 13, everybody consider 13 an amazing vintage. I think like 89, I don't know, 45, or we can go back more, but great vintages with a great potential of aging. But why are considered great? Because when journalists wrote about those wines, and they came in Barbaresco and Barolo area, a lot of wines showed really nice and well. In a difficult vintage, only the great terroir makes something really good. And is why I always joke, of course, I am really happy when the vintage is really nice and is more easy. But when we have a little bit more rain or some dry season during summer, you will see really the difference of the work from the old vines. And if you compare a good terroir with a less good terroir. In 2013, I think if you try wines all around the area, you will be disappointed really few times, because everybody made something good. We had a correct winter. After we had a spring with 45 days of rain. Perfect. Because during, we always are worried about the rain, but in spring is so important. It's the water for the summertime and also for the season. After things changed and we had a really nice summer, also another important information is that the temperature never became warmer than 35 degrees. And this is good, because in the last vintages, I heard also friends around Europe, they had 42, 43, 45 degrees, and this is not so easy sometimes. But when we have 35 degrees, we have no problems, because the leaf doesn't stop the photosynthesis, and this means the maturation is really classic. And like as always, and Daniel, you asked me at the beginning, but we always pick grapes in maturity. This sounds stupid, but what is maturity? From my point of view, maturity is when we have the physiologic maturation inside of the berry. This means, talking about Nebbiolo, is a strange variety with a lot of acidity, but also when we pick really late, we still have the same acidity. I'm talking about old vines in balance with our soil condition. I'm not talking about all around, but if I wait, I don't lose acidity. The point is that when I work in the vineyard, I remember my teacher, it was my grandfather when I was 5-6 years old, working in the vineyard, take the berries from the bunch, from different part of the bunch, open the berry and eat the seeds. When I was 5 years old, it was more eat the fruit and don't care about what's happened. But of course, but year after year, and they were really good. But year after year, I understood that this is the best analysis possible, because if I go in my laboratory or in a laboratory more technological in Turin, I receive a number. If I walk in the vineyard and I eat and I feel the skin texture, I feel the juice, but the most important, I feel the crispiness of the seeds. I know exactly the maturation. And we have to pick only when the seeds are mature, are brown, are crispy, are ready. This means often we are known to be late harvester, but late doesn't, for my point of view, is the right point, because if I have stronger tannins from the seeds, we discussed it before, you will see those tannins inside of the wine, and they will be so aggressive, and they don't disappear with the aging. This means pick at the right point is one of the most important things. I have another way to do the analysis of the maturation, and is how easy is take away the berry. If it's easy to the stem, this means the grape is close to be ready for the harvest. And this doesn't happen every year, but in a vineyard, when I see the berries start cry, this means in a small vineyard like Montefico, 0.24 hectares, I walk around in the vineyard and I see...
Don't tell anybody about it. Don't tell anybody about it.
No, but for example, I work in a vineyard small, like Montefico. This means I have to pick a vineyard in 2-3 hours, half day maximum. I see three, 4 bunches with one berry, with a little drop who come outside. This means it's the perfect physiologic maturation. And in the last years, we always harvested at this point. The day after, this will be botrytis. And this is not good. We have to take away this berry. But at this point, it's perfect. And we always pick in this time. Sometimes people ask about the harvest time, and for Nebbiolo is really long. 3 weeks, sometimes 20, 25 days. We start from the older vines, south, exposed, we go in southwest, and we end in east. Older vines, and after younger and younger, at the end, the young vines. This means really long time, but for pick the parcel at the right time, we have only half day. This is important because sometimes people think, oh, okay, you have a lot of time. No, for pick the parcel, we have only a few hours. Before is too early, after is too late.
Luca.
Yes.
Having you here again, it's such a great, the wine is spectacular. I don't have any more.
No. Daniel,
I can change a bit, but you know, I'm very happy that you just open up for 2 of your very good friends in Burgundy. For the next wines, I'm sure you can stay with us, go to your cellar, bring the bottle of Dujac and another bottle of Roumier, or for you from Jeremy and Christophe, and keep join us on the tasting, and after it's the vinification of Jeremy, and after from Christophe, and we don't really need anyone. So, you know, having you here, but
I'm quite jealous.
I really think I'm so happy to introduce you to our clients. We have about 32 people here that could have your wine today until their house. That it's a great thing, sitting in different saloons and having this opportunity. I think without this maybe crazy time of the world, but it builds us new opportunities and a really great time to have you here with us, to everyone hear you, feel your vibration, and not only your wine. Many people today tasted for the first time maybe also your wines, and you know, for me what you do, it's an amazing work, and it's really to see someone that have so much passion and so much positive things to say about so many other winemakers, and have so much confidence about your work. And it's really an unbelievable honor to have you with me, and I really hope your friend will be here soon with us after. Maybe you can tell us some small things more about your new winery we have behind you, when it has been built.
Which one? No,
the one you. And I'm really seeing that we have also Jeremy with us, so maybe we can unmute Jeremy and let a few words saying by him and you before introducing. So Jeremy Sess from Domaine du Jacques is here with us for the first time with many Israeli clients we have also for the du Jacques wines. Have you both on the same screen is more than a dream. I don't think I could dream about it in the night. So thank you for having my dream before my night.
Hi, Daniel.
Jeremy.
Hi. Ciao, Luca.
Ciao, Jeremy.
How's everyone doing? Nice to see you all. Thanks for having me. Last minute edition. I see you've got lots of good things in front of you. I'm sorry, I've just joined, so you're going to have to catch me up or tell me what I'm supposed to talk about, if anything.
Absolutely. So we started with the two Chablis wines from the Patrick פיוז who've been with us, and we moved to the Burlotto Barolo 13 to have the expression a bit of Verduno, and in the other side we have here the one big legend of Piedmont and the crazy guy who explained us very well about what the crazy things he does in Piedmont, one and only Luca Roagna. And now we can really serve the Moret Saint-Denis 2017 from you. And it's really an amazing honor to have you also here with us. And you have such a great fans for your wines in Israel. Personally, you have me always from your father's side to now times to all the time, which one of my personal favorite wineries in Burgundy. And I think I can move on for you to explain us a bit of the domain, the Du Jacques, and the Sess family, which have the Du Jacques, and from the Moret Saint-Denis. So we are moving to Pinot Noir, although Luca moved us quite
I don't
nicely.
want to cut anything short. I mean, Luca's got a big winery to talk about there. So if you want to do a tour, we can give it a bit of time.
Exactly. If we don't have nothing to do, Luca can just move with his computer and go
to go around it.
Because Luca, until now you didn't show us the jail, where you store all the bottles.
It's a good place to be locked up. Okay, so I'll be fairly quick and brief. So Domaine du Jacques my father's name is Jacques, and the name comes from his first name. So it's the Domaine of Jacques, and he created the domaine in the late 60s. The first harvest was 68. Before that, my grandfather was an industrialist, and my father worked for him for a few years. He did 2 harvests of stage with Gérard Potel at Domaine de la Pousse d'Or, and started looking for vineyards and a house, and found that in Moret Saint-Denis at the end of 67. And 68 was honestly probably the worst vintage of the century. So that one was a good one to put behind, and then start again in 1969. And 1969 was a lovely vintage, and that really helped. It was a small crop, but that launched the domaine. I came back full time. I started helping my father for harvest in 1994. I was somewhat reluctant to go back into the family business at first. It was not necessarily my first calling, but after that first harvest, I decided I realized that I really did like it. I've been resisting it the way teenagers resist wanting to do what their parents do, and at some point you think, okay, maybe there's a valid reason for this, but if it's just to try to define my identity, maybe I can find other ways to do so. So I came back full time in 2000, and I've been at the domaine ever since. So at first as an assistant, and then gradually as the lead decision maker. And I work with my wife Diana and my brother Alec. So the domaine is when my father first bought it was 4.5 hectares, and we're now at 17.5 hectares, with vineyards mostly in the Côte de Nuit. Gevrey-Chambertin, Moret Saint-Denis, Chambal-Musigny, and Vaudreuil-Manet. And since 2014, we have rented some vineyards in Puligny-Montrachet, in the Folatière, and in the Combette. So we make both red and white, and we make some white in Moret Premier Cru, and in Bourgogne Blanc as well. The domaine is farmed organically. Since 2001, we started on a portion of the domaine, in retrospect, we wish we'd started earlier, but we moved gradually from chemical farming in the 70s and 80s, as was the general recommendation at the time. I guess we were not trendsetters; we were followers on that front, and thought we were doing the right thing. And then in the 90s, we moved to lutte raisonnée and or what do you call it? And then lutte intégrée, which is so I guess what's deemed sustainable. And then later on, integrated. So we stopped herbicides, and then in 2001 we started with organic and biodynamic. And that's and yeah, as I say, we regret not doing that earlier, because I think that really helped drive the quality. And and I suppose in terms of winemaking, we're known. With Brulotto, you have an example from another region, but we're known for whole cluster fermentations. And I guess Fabio only does that for his Monviliero, really. But we
the 100% 100% Vandargentière for the Monviliero.
Yeah.
And, for you,
he crushes the grapes by foot. We used to do 100% and do a little bit of foot crushing, but we as a whole, we really keep the grapes more whole. If we were to contrast techniques, and obviously Nebbiolo and Pinot are. Nebbiolo is a grape weighs upward of a kilogram, and Pinot weighs upward of 100 grams. So they're very different structured bunches, and the rachis is much more sturdy for Pinot, so it's easier to destem actually than Nebbiolo. The berries are much smaller with Pinot, and so we don't, and the traditions are quite different as well. So Luca here, I know, does some really long macerations, and our longest macerations these days are 15 days, whereas your longest macerations are
10% of Luca highest for the Crichette Paillet, maybe 12% time.
You ferment, you keep on the skins for how long, Luca, for some of your wines? You've been muted.
Luca?
You're muted.
Luca, unmute yourself.
Yes, do you hear me?
Now we hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I muted me because I always talk and it's not good. No, I do for 80, 90 days, the maximum, but submerged cap and no pumping over at the beginning, and a really little Grappantière, really tight.
But yeah, no, it's a very different, while the wines share some things in common, the culture of fermenting cru separately, the emphasis of red wines with not too much color and a lot of perfume and things like that. There's a lot of parallels to be drawn, and the culture between Piedmont and Burgundy is a grower culture more than with some negociant houses. It's very different from the chateau culture of Bordeaux, which in some ways is probably more similar to parts in Tuscany. Certainly we understand each other very well, but the actual winemaking is quite different between the two regions. So the wine you're tasting tonight, 2017, is 17 in Burgundy. It's funny. It was a really hot year in Piedmont. It was a fairly cool summer. It was an early harvest, but a cool summer in Burgundy. And so it made for really classic whites, and I think reds that I'm thinking more and more highly of. At first, I was a little bit underwhelmed. I like the 16s better, but I think that there's a nice precision. It's not too ripe. There's really good freshness, and in the case of the Moret, you really feel the Moret character come through. Which is, Moret is a village that aromatically there's some spiciness to it. But it's not as exotic as the spice of Vosne-Romanée. It's more things like cinnamon, nutmeg. It's what you can nickname it pantry spice. And the tannins are quite different from both Gevrey-Chambertin and Chambord-Musigny, the two neighboring villages. There's always a slight graininess to the tannins of Moret. But what I like compared
also
to
some of the Vandargentière side, inside the greeniness side of Moret, which you like to giving a bit more expression for it with the kind of Vandargentière.
So for sure, the whole cluster character kind of comes through in our wines, and so that can be for some people there's a slight mintiness, but certainly there's a slight greenness to them, which some people really can't stand and some people like a lot. It can also bring a slightly peppery character, floral characters as well. So it's, it depends on people's, what people react to or what they perceive first and foremost. I now just say a whole cluster character because that's what it tastes like to me. And I have to try to differentiate that from the natural character of Moret. But Moret, what I like about it is, for me, sometimes Gevrey-Chambertin, which makes the village with incredible wines, but there's a certain warmth to Moret, which I like, which I don't find in Gevrey. And for me, it tastes like home. So I like that side of Moret a lot.
And which is very difficult to find a Moret village, but it's very easy to find a lot of Gevrey village.
Gevrey is much, much bigger than Moret. There's only 60 hectares of Moret, and I think there's roughly 60 hectares of Moret village, and there's something like 300 hectares of Gevrey-Chambertin village. So yes, there's more around.
And I think really it's some kind of one of the most beautiful expressions of whole clusters, and it's amazing because it's so classic. Because I drink Dujac. I think all the Dujac I drank was from the start of the 17th and until now, and I think it's one of the most consistent domains in Burgundy, which is really giving unbelievable wine since your father time to your time. And I can say that from my most enjoyable times in my life, I got some the great Dujac, and you always have this character, this mix between also the Moret character, but the Vendage entière that is very specific to Dujac flavors and tastes.
Well, I accept the compliment, but there's this, as a winemaker, what we really want to do is try to put the terroir forward and the style behind. And at the same time, you try to do that, but everything in winemaking is a choice. When do you pick? How do you farm? And when do you pick? When do you destem or not? Do you use new oak or not? Do you inoculate yeast or not? And so there's all these little choices that take you along the way and direct your style. And from one year to another, you might change those things, but what you're heading towards, you have an idea, and there's certain things you like. So even though you might do very different techniques from one year to the other, you're still trying to get to a place that's somewhat similar of wines of balance, wines of freshness, wines of purity and precision, aromatic wines and that type of thing. And so you can though you may take different roads, you can end up with something somewhat similar and a style that people recognize, but hopefully not at the expense of the terroir.
For sure. No, that was always the beauty, I think, the mix between the terroir always forward and the beauty of the style. I think for Luca is the same way, great expression of the terroir and the soil, but actually many others have this soil and the terroirs. And to be a unicorn and to be unique and make your own style, it's always a mix between. Can you tell us a bit about the Moret village from the parcels, the character of the parcels, and overall a little bit about the wines of Dujac in Moret? I know, of course, we have many others, but if we concentrate on the Moret, which you have the Clos de la Roche.
No, otherwise we'll be there all night. We make something like 21 different wines plus the négoce.
Exactly.
So the Moret village you're having is a mix, a blend of made in tank from the start. Most of it comes from the Climat Les Porous, and Les Porous is between the main, the domaine really, the house where my parents live and where the cellars are. It's between that and the RN74, and there we have about 2.5 hectares of Moret village.
We will put the Moret village map up.
So you see where La Bussière is?
Yeah.
Kind of lower left?
Yeah.
Where the E of Bussière is, that's the domaine. And so the big block in front of it, between that and the M of Moret, that's the Porous. And that's where we have the bulk of our vineyards. Then we have some Le Village, which is just to the north of La Bussière, so that little block that is just the. Let me see. Can I see your arrow? Anyway, the block that's next, just above the E, the final E of Bussière, that would be Le Village.
Yeah.
Then there's some Clos-Solon, which is below Les Sorbets. There's some Herbrotte, which is below, well, you don't have the name for it there, but we have some Herbrotte, which is below
all of them are on the lower part.
So yes, we have nothing that comes from above the Grand Cru. There's a few villages that are up there, but nothing comes from above that. It's a very small amount of village that's above in the Montluisan and in the Bidaude and de Riotte. But yeah, all of ours. So the soils there are a little bit deeper. They're quite clay rich, which brings some power and some structure to the wines. The clay is always quite tannic compared to the more rocky soils. And well, what can I tell you more? I don't know. That's kind of the Morée, but it's a blend of different locations.
Which gives us a bit of the southern part of Morée until the middle part, not touching more the Gevrey part. So it's really the classic Morée style and kind of.
But Morée being only 60 hectares, honestly, there's no bad parts for village in Morée. Whereas in Gevrey-Chambertin, there's a few places which are a little marginal. You could say the same thing for Chambord-Lusigny. Most of it is good, but there's a few places that are less exciting, or certainly that people would not pay as much for. But in Morée, it's pretty consistent. It's a very compact area. We also make a Morée Premier Cru, which is mostly from Les Ruchots, and there's some Charrière, which I didn't see on your map, some Clos-Sorbet, and some Millande. So it's a blend of 4 different places. The Charrière and the Millande we would make less than a barrel of if we vinify them separately, and that's just not an option and not possible, so we decide to make a blend. Then the Clos Saint-Denis is a blend of 2 parcels, 3 really, but because of different ages of planting. Clos Saint-Denis is the most elegant wine within the Morée Grand Crus and Premier Crus for that matter. So it's always the silkiest in terms of tannin, and it is the most floral and perfumed wine from Morée. And Clos La Roche touches Clos Saint-Denis. There we have a number of blocks within, so at least 5 different climats, and in some of the climats we have multiple blocks. It's our second biggest holding behind Morée Village, and we have almost 2 hectares of Clos La Roche. So with Clos La Roche, it is more polished than Combotte, but it's a little more tannic than Clos Saint-Denis, more obvious tannin, more spicy. Just you feel the musk quite a lot, and there's a wildness to Clos La Roche. And how would I describe it? It's always got also more obvious power, more obvious structure, and more obvious power than Clos Saint-Denis.
All the liquor and the power.
And there's frequently aromas of graphite. It's more stony in a way, that kind of stony austerity. And I saw someone was asking about the négoce. I'll just have a quick word about the négociant wines. So we make, well, historically we started off with 3 négociant wines, all 3 villages, Chambord, Morée, and Gevrey. Always a blend of parcels. The parcels of Morée are from what we might call the wrong side of the road, but actually in the same altitude curve. So this comes from Les Cogniers and Les Sevrés, is the Morée village. And we harvest it as grapes, but and make the wine the same way as we do for the domaine, but they're always a bit softer because they're not farmed organically, and I think the skins aren't quite as thick. It's always a bit more fruit forward, and we use a little bit less new oak. And same for all 3 of them. And now we start making a Nuit Saint-Georges Les Cras, and we made a bit of a Nuit Saint-Georges Les Damaudes, and both of those are a bit different from the domaine. We destem them a little bit more aggressively, so they're about 60% whole crust.
That's, yeah. And well, you have here a beautiful wine, and for 17, which is not such a known vintage, I think the freshness, the complexity, and it's so classic and beautiful. I I just drank 1 year ago the 16, and of course it's more a bit more powerful and energy and freshness, but I think today is more close, and enjoying the 17 right now, it's really nice, and I think in the few years coming, which the greater wines of the 17 will open up, but I think it's a really vintage that it's nice for the restaurants, for the people, for the private consumer to enjoy on the young side of it.
I think it's a vintage that's going to be open earlier for sure than 16. The 16s have gone in quite big, and you really feel the ripeness, and aromatically they're shut down. And whereas the 17s, it's a kind of vintage a bit like 14, a little bit like 07, but it's denser than 07. And honestly, the wines always age. At this stage, there's never a vintage that doesn't last, for Village at least 15 years, and for Grand Cru 25 to 30. It seems even in the lighter vintages like 2000 is still good, and that was supposed to be a vintage for drinking in 5 years. But the 97 is still good, and that's.
But I think your wines and the Domaine du Jacques historical wines are Vin des Gardes that really are the most amazing expression is a bit on time. It's depend on, of course, the vineyard, the quality and everything. But for the bigger vintages, it can age 100 years, and for the smaller ones, it's 20, 30 years.
And maybe if you keep it in your freezer, but I'm not sure. I'm not buying any wines for my personal cellar that are made to last 100 years. I'm not that optimistic.
When we come to your cellar, but there is still no 100 years for Domaine du Jacques until now.
No, not for another 48.
Yeah. So tell me a little history. Our next wine will be the Chambol Village for the Roumier. And okay. I know in the history you have some connection between Roumier and du Jacques for the Graillet family, which you have been developed to the du Jacques wineries from Graillet, and Roumier got the Clos de la Boussière from the same place.
So I think the Roumier family purchased from Domaine du Jacques, the house in which my parents live, in which the domaine is, and the first 4.5 hectares vineyard used to be called Domaine Graillet and belonged to the Graillet family. And Mr. Graillet sold to my father. But before that, his father had run out of money, I think in the 30s, and they owned Clos de la Boussière, and so the Roumier family purchased that from them. And a few decades later, they sold the rest, and that's how we ended it. My father had bought it in the original vineyards. There was a hectare of Clos Saint-Denis, and my father he bought it, and he had never tasted Clos Saint-Denis until he made it, which is I find that kind of crazy. When we bought Malconsard, the first thing I did was rush out, go buy a bottle of Malconsard and tried it. But with Clos Saint-Denis, no one was really bottling it. There was the négoce was putting it in other things, so you never saw it around. So it's kind of
and for the name, as your family name and your father name is
Sess, and I'm sure there's a few people here who can relate to having complicated last names to pronounce and have it massacred by people at school or that sort of thing. And so my father knew enough. My father knew enough about marketing that he said it's got to be pronounceable and it's got to be easy to remember. So when people call him, as I said, his name is Jacques. And so when people started referring to the vineyards of Jacques, it was Les Vignes du Jacques, and then it became du Jacques. He contracted it and created a fantasy name, but that referred to his first name.
Name has
That's a great story.
Just goes on the palate perfectly. Du Jacques. So I can
exactly.
Just. I just want to say a little bit some things about the Moret Village. I think they evolve amazingly with a little bit of aging, and for me, even d'Argentière, when it's aged, it's totally different than you first taste it, either in barrel or either a recent vintage in bottle. I think the some sort of herbal freshness or the greenness just disappeared, and a much more greater freshness just comes alive, and the fruit just getting a little bit more thin. For me, just for me. So I wanted to check with you about your opinion on what does happen to a wine when it was vinified with Vendange after, let's say, 10, 15 years?
It's so, I mean, I'm not necessarily the best placed person because I'm not objective at all, and you know, it's what I know, and I don't necessarily know the alternative at all with the same kind of intimacy or proximity. But what we like about it is it feels like, and not every grape variety is suitable for vendange entière. Not every location works, and some people would argue that it doesn't necessarily work for our wines. So it's really kind of a divisive issue. But I think that most winemakers would agree that there's no place where distemming doesn't work. Distemming works pretty much everywhere, and you can. So it's lower risk as a form of winemaking because also in your extraction, you can push it for longer without extracting vegetal flavors. You can. It offers a pretty wide range of styles, and you can do all sorts of things with it. With whole cluster, you can really screw up pretty quick. If it goes wrong, you end up with a wine that's horribly vegetal, super grassy, smells like green beans, super tannic, and and undrinkable. And I've made one of those once upon a time. So I feel like I speak with at least the experience of just how badly this can go wrong. So, but I think for my personal preference, the highs you can reach are higher with whole cluster. I think you can gain depth and complexity and more lifted aromatics than you can with a distemmed. And so with that in mind, I think it's worth taking those risks and you manage them because at some point, you build your experience and familiarity with your vineyards and with the circumstances that nature throws at you in any given vintage. And with that in mind, I feel like it's worth that risk in order to try to reach something better and higher. But it is not as fruit forward, but I feel like in the riper vintages like we've been getting recently, it brings a certain freshness to the wines. That slight mintiness and greenness can counterbalance a little bit the very rich, ripe fruit that we can end up with in vintages like 15 or 16 or 2009 before that, or that type of thing. And in a cold vintage, the stems actually take away some of the acidity because they contain potassium and that precipitates tartaric acid. So you end up with slightly lower acid wines, and with these slightly lower acid wines in a year like 13, it can really help bring a little bit of roundness to otherwise a wine that would be really aggressive on the acid front, which makes the tannins harder and all those things. So that's where I stand on it. But then how it ages is always unpredictable. The vintages like 05 are not changing at all. Vintages like 07 are much more going through a faster cycle and are much more approachable. It's just every year is totally surprised. And I've made predictions in the past and I've gotten them so wrong that I just now know better than to just...
O2's Moray Village are just crazy. Just literally crazy.
I just had 5 actually last year and it was really beautiful. But Jeremy, I don't want to take more of your...
Yeah, no, I've got to go say goodnight to the kids, so I should leave you go.
Thank you so much. It's a really great honor to have you here with us. You have such a great fans in Israel, and I'm so happy that you came up with us.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. Have a good end to your tasting, guys. Have a good one. Okay, nice to see you. See you soon, hopefully.
See you soon. Luca, you don't go. אוקיי,
זה היה, שמע, כאילו, אני חושב שאחת החוויות שאני הולך ליקב זה, לפני שאתה שותה את היין, זה כאילו בשביל לשמוע את היינן, את הסיפור שלו וזה, ובעצם חסכנו...
הבאנו את כולם לפה,
חסכנו טיסה.
זה סוג של יום בטיול יין. זה 3 יקבים.
ממש.
לרוב אתה מסיים את זה גמור. 9 בערב שיכור איפשהו, פעם זה היה לנו אחד מדויק לעניין.
ואתה אומר, מה הולך פה? כאילו, יענן אחרי יענן מהעיקבים באמת הגדולים בעולם, דוז'ק, ואולי אנחנו עכשיו מגיעים...
דוז'ק. Luca, you think it's do Jacques or it's too Jacques? Give him a little bit, unmute the guy.
Quatre Jacques.
Quatre Jacques, yeah. Yeah. No, but yeah, we can still speak in English as everyone here on the our audience is all English speakers. And I think we can move to the last wine, which I don't have Christoph here with me, but I have you as well as a great fan of Christoph. And I didn't have the time as Jeremy came in to say, thank you so much for being with us and expressing your thoughts and having everyone see you here, as we know that your father is not only restricted and working in the vineyard, he's also not so happy to so many people come to the winery to drink all of the wines with you, because when you are in the winery, everyone goes. So we had you here
82, of course,
with so many people that it's really, really an amazing time, and your wine were great, and it's great to have you here staying with us for the wine of Jeremy and Christoph, and we can serve them. And it will be really nice for you as a colleague to say some words over Christoph for his wine, as you know him and everything. After I would say some things, but you...
I bring a bottle. I bring a bottle of Christoph.
Yes?
Bah. No, maybe. But for me, Christoph is one of the best person first and winemaker I know. He's a great ambassador with, and he knows every detail about their own vineyard. He's crazy. He's meticulous. Best tasting I had in life, it was in him cellar. And at the end, he opened at the Bommar 1953.
Yeah, so I will continue a little bit on Hebrew for the Roumier family and everything, but it's great you can stay with us here, and it's so fun to have you.
השנייה לפני שממשיכים, אז בעצם שתינו עד עכשיו 5 יינות, כאילו תגיד, כאילו אולי תתן כמה שורות על כולם לפני שאנחנו ממשיכים ככה.
אני חושב שבפיוז דיברנו היטב עם העינן, לגבי בורלוטו גם הרחבנו, לגבי היין של לוקה היה פה אותו, לגבי דוז'ק, אני מאוד שמח להביא יין שאני ספציפית גם לא מייבא לארץ, הייתי כמובן מאוד שמח לעשות את זה, אבל אחד העיקרים שאני אישית הכי אוהב בעולם, וזה פשוט יינות נהדרים, ומכאן לעבור באמת, לבשורה הכי גדולה שהגיעה לארץ בשנים האחרונות, סוף סוף, אחרי כל כך הרבה שנים, האורים ותומים של ה-70 שנים האחרונות בבורגון, דומיין רומיה, כאן, ובפעם הראשונה שאנחנו תואמים אותו, בפעם הראשונה שמישהו תואם אותו בארץ,
זה אצלם בסלון.
זה אצלכם בסלון, עם רומיה, שמבול מוזיני 2017, יקב בעל היסטוריה שמתחילה בשנות ה-30, שכבר דיברנו עליה, במקרה ככה הכנסתי את דוז'ק פנימה לתוך ההיסטוריה הזאת, גם רוסו נמצא איכשהו בתוך ההיסטוריה הזאת עם רושות שמברטה.
כל הגדולים מתחברים ביחד.
איכשהו מתחברים
ביחד כל הגדולים.
כן, אבל בכל מקרה, מרוב התרגשות קצת קשה לדבר על זה, שאנחנו תואמים את העין הזה מרחוק ולא עם אנשים לידינו, אבל דומיין רומיה הוקם בשנות ה-30, על ידי ג'ורג' רומיה, שבעצם הדומיין הוקם, זה סבא של מי שעושה את העין היום, כריסטוף רומיה, ובזכות חתונה, בזכות אשתו, בסופו של דבר. בזכות אשתו של ג'ורג' רומיה,
הדברים הטובים מגיעים ככה.
ככה, ממנה לאט לאט נרכשו קרמים במשך השנים. היקב הוא היקב עם השם הכי ישב בכפר שמבול מוזיני, אז אם קודם טעמנו את היקב של מורה סנדני, אז הכפר הסמוך, אנחנו עוברים לשמבול מוזיני. עשייה שונה, אם נדבר על העשייה של דוז'ק ועל העשייה של רומיה, יש פה שוני מאוד גדול בסגנונות, עם דוז'ק זה מאוד על גם אשכולות שלמים, גם לא מעט עץ חדש, אז ברומיה אנחנו מדברים על מקסימום של 30% עץ חדש, ואנחנו מדברים על אקספרשן מטורף לטעמי של פינו נואר, אולי האקספרשן. הכפר שמבול מוזיני שנחשב לנשי ביותר, והפמינין והכל, אז רומיה אולי זה העינות שמתיישנים גם הכי טוב שיש, הכי טוב בעולם.
אז אנחנו באמת אומרים יין מאוד 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 צעיר, אתה אומר כאילו מתיישנים, יין מאוד 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 צעיר, אבל בכל זאת רצית להראות
את כל הרבדים, את כל המורכבות שלו, ומבציר כמו 2017, זה הבציר הראשון שהגיע, אם היה איזה שיש לי...
סלל רוצה 10.
לא, צועק. אני אומר שהיו קומנטים על זה שכביכול זה פדופילה לשתות בורגון שהוא מ-2017, אבל למרות שהוא מ-2017 יש פה הזדמנות לשתות יין ולהגיד, וואו, כאילו, ברור שאנחנו, כנראה שאלה שיקנו לא ישתו אותו עכשיו, אלא ישנו אותו עוד הרבה מאוד שנים, יש פה הזדמנות לטעום ולגלות את אותו פוטנציאל.
בדיוק, וגם מבציר כמו 17, שהוא בציר נגיש בבורגון, ואני חייב להגיד לכם, זו פעם ראשונה שאני טועם שמבול 17 רומיה, והוא באמת יחסית נגיש, ורואים את הבציר, ובאמת אפשר לשתות וליהנות ולהבין מה הפוטנציאל של הייננות הזאת. השמבול מוזיני של רומיה מגיע מכמה חלקות שונות, אבל ההיילייט בתוך החלקות של השמבול מוזיני של רומיה זה חלק קטן בתוך לפואה, שמבול מוזיני פרמייר קרו לפואה, שמבול מוזיני פרמייר קרו לפלנט, שנמצאים בתוך היין הזה, וגם החלק העליון של שמבול מוזיני קרא. הקרא נמצא, החלק התחתון שלו יותר זה פרמייר קרו, החלק העליון יותר שלו זה וילאז'. אז אלה שלושת המרכיבים המרכזיים שמרכיבים את היין הזה. מה עוד אנחנו יכולים להגיד? המוזיני הנחשב ביותר, בונמר, שהוא היותר מרכזי שלו, שמבול פרמייר קרו קרא, בישראל יש לנו לבחירה את השמבול וילאז', את המורה פרמייר קרו מונופול,
קלוד לבוסייר שדיברנו עליו לפני רגע עם ג'רמי, שזה תכלס, אם אני לא טועה, זה יין הדגל, כמובן שאם אנחנו לא נוגעים רגע במוזיני ובונמר, אז שמדברים קצת על רומיה, אני חושב שבנמוכים, בורגון רוז יין שפשוט לא רואים לעולם, לא ניתן להשיג לעולם, יכול להיות לא קיים גם, אבל אני חושב שהמורה סנדני,
בוסייר זה מה שרואים הרבה.
בוסייר זה...
אז אנחנו יכולים לראות שבוסייר נמצא ממש בצד הימני של המפה שלכם, מתחת לקלוד אתר למטה, והשמבול וילאז', החלק המרכזי שלו, כמו שאנחנו רואים את הפואה והקרא שנמצאים ליד הבונמר, אם אנחנו נזוז טיפה שמאלה עם החץ, ולמעלה קצת, למעלה, כן, זה הבונמר, וקצת שמאלה לו עוד קצת פואה, והחלק העליון של קרא, שמרכיבים את היין הזה. ברומיה, מה שחשוב אצלו, מזריישן. אז רומיה מגיע עד לטמפרטור של בערך 30 מעלות, חשוב לו מאוד מבחינת קריסטוף, שם זה החלק שהיינן מורגש ביותר באשריות, באשריה החמה.
ראינו את זה גם בייננים קודמים.
בלוקה,
כמה לוקה רוצה לקחת את זה לכמעט 100 יום, ולהתייחס לזה במאוד...
Luca, can I ask you one question about your maceration? Because I just spoke about the maceration of Christoph, that for him also it's such an important part, and the part that the winemaker have his say. So what is such an important thing about the hot maceration? Because actually what we speak about is your long maceration, which people can confuse and think about the cold maceration, which will take only a few days, mostly here, and then the hotter maceration is taking longer time. What it gives for you, this maceration?
For us, the hot maceration is not really hot maceration, but we like, first of all, fermentation quite warm. This means until 32, 33 degrees Celsius, and is important because talking about Nebbiolo, we can take...
Which is the same as Christoph is doing.
Yes.
He's been as
and
well.
it is important because we can take some substance impossible to take if the temperature is lower. And of course, until the end of the fermentation, the temperature starts to go down, and we keep around 20 degrees the temperature with the cellar temperature during harvest until during the maceration time. But at the beginning, when the fermentation go up, it's important to have this step. And if we use the cold fermentation or cold maceration at the beginning, it's impossible to have the delta thermic and half to go until 32, 33 degrees for Nebbiolo in our condition.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. So then for the, אז מה שאני מרגיש באופן אישי פה ביין זה באמת תחושה של באמת עוצמות פרי מטורפות, המון עומק ביין, מינרליות מטריפה שנכנסת. אתה לא מרגיש פה שיש פה איזה בציר שהוא לא בציר גדול, אתה מרגיש פה יין סופר רציני, גדול, מלא בעומק, מלא באושר, ואני חושב שזה הסמל של רומיה בעינות שלו. עינות שהן באמת, אי אפשר להגיד שזה כל העוצמה בלי המסה, כי גם שמבול מוזיני, למרות שחושבים שזה הכפר היותר נשי, אז כן, יש בו את הנשי, כי יש בו יין שהוא סופר אלגנטי, אבל מצד שני, יש לו המון עוצמה, המון מורכבות, ואני באופן אישי מרגיש יכולת אישית מדהימה, וסיומת מתמשכת, פשוט כמעט אינסופית. נשמח, זה ללא ספק כיף של יין סיום לכל הטעימה הזאת, ואני אשמח מאוד אם יהיו לנו עוד מילים מכם, שאלות, מה שתרצו, קומנטים גם טובים, שבחוסות דבר אתם נהנים ומקבלים המון מידע וידע מכל העניינים המהממים האלה שהצטרפו עלינו היום, וזה בהחלט טעימה שהיא היסטוריה בפני עצמה.
כן, שגם הקורונה כאילו הביאה לנו את ההבנה הזאת, שגם אם אנחנו לא מגיעים בסוף לצרפת או לאיטליה, יכולים לקבל את אותו חוויה, ממש כאילו אנחנו נמצאים ביקב. ואנחנו ממש נצטרך לשמוע מכם בכלל קומנטים גם על היינות, וגם בכלל איך הרגשתם וחשבתם לטוב ולרע. אני אישית מאוד מאוד נהניתי. אחד מהיינות, 2 מהאנשים המדהימים כאילו שהיו איתנו, והייננים בכלל היו כל כך אינפורמטיביים.
אהבנו ליאור. So Luca, we have one of our guests saying that it's difficult for them to speak with all the smile they have on the face, you know. For you, it's the original way when you drink the wine, so
of course
we can understand it. Exactly. Nothing
to say anymore.
Nothing to say.
Just smiling.
אז באמת, כיף להיות. אני חושב שהיין הזה מבטא באמת את הטופ של הטופ. שתינו כאן מכל מקום. אני באמת יכול להגיד שלי באופן אישי, 2 העיינות הכי מטורפים שהיו פה היום היו רואניה הרומיה פה שנותן באמת...
זה ממש כל השולחן פה, מסכים איתך?
יש פה הסכמה פה אחד.
אהבתי מאוד את דוז'ק, וג'רמי היה איתנו, וזה כבוד גדול לי באופן אישי במיוחד, כי אני לא מייבא גם את העיינות האלה, וכל כך כיף לראות את השארינג הזה בשביל אנשים שאוהבים יין, וזה לאו דווקא העניין של היבוא והמחירה, אנחנו באמת פה רוצים... להעביר את הסגנון והתשוקה והאהבה הזאת ליין. ובאמת הכי מאושרים בעולם שיש לנו גם את רומיה וגם את רואניה איתנו, וגם את בורלוטו ואת פטריק שהיה פה איתנו, ואת כולכם, כי בלעדיכם, in the end, we say, and I will say it in English, that, you know, I asked Jean-Yves Bizot, what is the most important thing about making wine? He asked me, actually. And then I told him, Jean-Yves, I'm not even going to answer, so answer me with, you know, when the professor asks you a question, you say, you can let me get some more knowledge. Huh? So he said that the most important is the last client drink the wine, the private client drink the wine, because basically if we don't have anyone to drink the wine, in the end, there is nothing much to do. So we need the last clients to like the wine very much. So I'm very happy that I have today more than 30 clients here with us. Some of them are chefs. Some of them are coming, are lawyers, some of them are journalists, some of them are from all over, and everything we have. And we are such a wine lovers all over here, having this wonderful tasting with us. I really hope you all enjoyed enjoyed what we made and brought.
And see you next Sunday.
In 2 weeks. In 2 weeks.
2 weeks. In 2 weeks,
We're
definitely.
confusing everybody.
Definitely.
In 2 weeks.
And I hope we will have the winemaker with us. So, yeah. Luca, thank you so much to be here with us and
See you
expressing
soon.
yourself.
See you soon in Piemonte, either with Daniel or
Big
without.
pleasure. Thank you so much. Big pleasure.
Organize some...
And the best webinar I ever had.
Exactly.
Really well organized. Super.
And I really hope we can, next time, we see your energy and everything here with us. And you have, of course, you have an open invitation to
Thank you so
Israel.
much.
Very difficult in the last 3 months, but I hope soon the air will open up again, the skies will open up, and we can see you soon. Huh?
And also, you are always welcome here for check what's happened in this crazy cellar.
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luca.
Salute.
And,
Thank you for everybody. Ciao.
Salute. Enjoy your night.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone. תודה רבה לכולם על הטעימה. אם יש לכם עוד שאלות, מילים, דברים, דבר על הרומיה, תמשיכו לשתות אותו בבית ואת כל שאר היינות, ונתראה בעוד שבועיים עם טעימה של דומן דה פליקן. 6 יינות של פליקן, יינות טבעיים. ולאחר מכן, אני יכול להגיד שכבר שבועיים אחר כך, אנחנו נטעם...
אני גם מאזין, כי אני גם פה...
ספוילרים. שנייה, זהו, תתאפק.
אז שנייה, אני אספר לכם שבעוד חודש מהיום אנחנו נטעם רוסו, מיו, ג'ורג' נואלה, שזה בחירה של אליקס מיו, ולאחר מכן אנחנו נטעם את הבחירה שתהיה של סיריאל רוסו.
אני חושב שאי אפשר לעלות מעבר לטעימה הזאת.
יכול להיות ששתיהן כמעט בוודאות יהיו יחד איתנו גם לטעימות האלה, ואני מאוד מאוד מקווה, אני אגיד לכם שאני אבטל את הטעימה אם פרנסואה לא יוכל לעלות איתנו לטעימה הבאה גם של פליקן, וזאת תהיה טעימה שבה נראה לי יותר נוכל לדבר עם יינן אחד, על כל העינות שלו לאורך זמן. גם המסעדות נפתחו, אז אנחנו גם נעשה קצת טעימות סביב השולחן עם כל החברים שלנו. אז חבר'ה, תודה רבה לכם, תודה רבה באמת. אנחנו נשאיר את זה גם פתוח עוד קצת, תרצו לדבר, אנחנו כאן, מה שנקרא ב-off tasting, יכולים קצת להשתחרר. תודה רבה, ושיהיה לילה טוב לכולם, ונתראה בקרוב. בנוסף אני אוסיף שמחר תוכלו לרכוש חלק מהעינות האלה, אנחנו נפרסם מחירים מיוחדים עבור כל מי שהיה פה בטעימה, זה יהיה רק עבורכם, רק מי שהיה כאן בטעימה יוכל לקנות את העינות האלה, אנחנו נשחרר כמות נחמדה מכל עינות, זה לא יהיו רק אלה, מדומן רומיה אנחנו נציע לא רק את השמבול, אלא גם קצת מהמורה פרמייר קרו וקצת מהשמבול פרמייר קרו קרא למחירה, פטריק פיוז, גם אנחנו נעשה פה רשימה יפה של השבלים, מלבד אלה שטעמנו היום.
וקיימים, ממש דיפ אינטו שבלי, כי הפרמיירים מגיעים מכל מקום, והגרנד גרועים פשוט. 15, 16 ו-17. לגמרי,
איך שרושמים בצ'אט, בראבו, באמת.
וגם רואניה ובורלוטו, ותהיו איתנו מחר, תירשמו לטעימה הבאה אם תרצו, ואתם, ה-open discussion, אפשר נראה לי לפתוח את כל המיוטים, ואם רוצים לדבר, להגיד, באופן חופשי, חבר'ה.
Unmute everyone.
Unmute. אתם יכולים להשאיר, לעזוב, להיות כאן. אז מה?
גם מאמינה למזלה טוב.
את הבקבוקונים יכול הפעם גם לשמור אותם.
אפילו שאכלת מזה קודם ונשאר בחיים.
אז בצד אחד אביבית שם, עוזריה, עם כל החבר'ה שלה שם כבר נראה, וגם יש לנו פה את אסף גרונוביץ' המושתק, אבל שעדיין בשקט, אבל יחד איתו יושבים כל חברי הברוט. אז איך אמרנו, מסעדות ולקוחות פרטיים, הורים ועוד שהיו כאן איתנו. זהו. אז תודה רבה.
תודה לכם, היה מעולה.
מה אומר?